What about data visualization? Do you expect it to be leveraged more in the future? And if so, what are the uses? What uses do you anticipate?
I love data visualization. It is obviously very easier on the eyes to look at. I'm more of, like you said, Joey, I'm a total nerd. I proudly am a nerd, but I like looking at data, but I understand that people like to see visuals, right? We have dashboards in our relativity environment that display all of the information that we're talking about here in a visual way, whether it's a bar graph or a chart or something like that. Definitely is going to be leveraged. Those widgets in relativity are dynamic, so you can click on those data points and drill down into them. What uses of data do you anticipate? I think what Daniel was saying with large language models being all the rage right now, I think that's going to play a factor into being able to gain an understanding of your data visually and very quickly versus looking at the raw data. It's coming.
Yeah. Think about companies like applications like Power BI and Tableau. The goal of all of this is to put actionable business intelligence in key decision makers' hands. We're leaning in proudly to the eDiscovery nerd moniker here, and I like it. But for those litigators that may not be as close to it as us, what do they have to do? They've got to answer questions. They've got to develop strategy. And these data visualization tools go a long way to provide insight in digestible and transferable forms. We're talking about simple things like pie charts, bar graphs, word clusters, where you can paint a picture that might take a long email to explain and equip somebody to go answer a question or to pivot or to find an area of focus. And these are incredibly powerful. A lot of the eDiscovery software companies are pouring resources into this area for obvious reasons, some of the reasons we just spoke. In addition to that, I think from a trend perspective, most of the visualizations historically have been quantitative.
Yeah.
So metrics on characteristics or file content. We're going to start seeing more qualitative visualizations. So topics, clusters, key themes, and take this even further.
When we talk about telling a story, the most obvious telling a story is telling a story to the jury or telling the story to the court. But there are other places where you've got to be able to tell the story of the data. You've got to be able to communicate with your client and help the client understand and make an informed decision. Sometimes you're telling a story to opposing counsel to persuade them of a reason to come to an agreement or to something else.
Throw in the word burden and proportionality.
Proportionality. You've got to tell a story to the court, even absent the jury, and to help to do that in many different contexts. So
absolutely
important.
A good tool for data visualization in terms of telling a story specifically is Case Dynamics. It's an application in Relativity. It's free to use. If your vendor doesn't have it, you should ask them about it. It's free to install, free to use. You can build visual timelines, all of that stuff, but that's for another day. But just wanted to throw it out there. There's already a solution for that built into Relativity.
There may be people who are actually tuning in who don't know what relativity is. We're throwing around that term because we're familiar with it and work with it every single day. But just in case there's a person here, there's somebody tuning in that's, I don't know what they're talking about, and every answer to a question has relativity in it. What's relativity?
Man, I've only been using this tool for, I don't know, 9 years now, or longer. It is an eDiscovery platform that is essentially a database containing your documents. That's what it is at its most basic form, but it also is very geared specifically towards eDiscovery and all the processes that you have to go do within eDiscovery, even starting from legal hold, processing, hosting, productions, redactions, all of that stuff. So it's a widely used tool in our industry, and it's the main tool that we use here at Level Legal.
It's a great tool, and the primary purpose of Relativity is to allow legal teams to collaborate on a central repository in a secure fashion and start reviewing records, making the important decisions in terms of how those files relate to the work on the merits. And it gives practitioners a lot of horsepower, specifically in the relativity analytics context, what we're talking about here, to make smart decisions about workflow design, prioritization, triage, and things like that. There are several modules within Relativity that different practitioners may use more than others. Litigators will interact with the document review interface, looking at content itself. Data analysts might be on the processing side, looking at extracting key content and serving these documents up for presentation in that context. Wonderful tool, and for those that haven't used it, it's a lot of fun when you get in there.
If you haven't, you probably will.